Coming up on CedarSpringsTV, we dive into the minds of students and how they are dealing with the missed opportunities and experiences due to COVID-19. We'll also be looking into the online schooling experience from the perspective of both teachers and students and how they've adapted. We then shine our spotlight on one of Cedar Springs' bright athletes, Dylan Greenland, and learn a little bit more about his everyday life. Following the piece, we'll see how fall sports are being wrapped up, and finally, we'll share a few fun activities you can do this fall to get a break from the everyday stress COVID creates. I'm your host, Willie Zane, and welcome back to another rendition of CedarSpringsTV. Over the last 8 months, life has been everything but normal. Spring sports were canceled, dances were canceled, the tail end of last school year went remote, social distancing was preached, and masks were being used everywhere. With the burden of COVID, students missed out on many opportunities, which led to many interesting ways to deal with the stress. With that, we send it over to Joe and Haley with more.
As we enter into the 2020 school year, students continue to find themselves missing out on things that they look forward to every year.
One thing I'd say that's changed most in my daily routine is probably I can't play sports with my friends as much as I want to, and the COVID, it kind of shut down football over the summer, and so I wasn't in shape as much as I was in summer, and then I couldn't do my normal routine in summer, so it was kind of off when we came back.
Opportunities I've missed from COVID, I guess, might include my first 3 football games that were supposed to all be pretty big games. That was especially against Rockford, that was a tough one.
Now we are going to look into how students are coping with missing out on opportunities this fall.
I'm coping with missing out on so much just by understanding at least we're getting some things. We could just be sitting at home doing nothing, and at least we're getting even if it's not the same for homecoming court, we're still getting a homecoming court. We're still getting to do this, we're still getting to do that. And the concept that we're still getting to do it and we're making the best out of it is just something that deep down I can live with.
It's been a little difficult. I've just been telling myself hey, nothing you can do, man. Stuff happens. This is obviously a weird situation, but you can't do much. You can't control much. It's just you got to go with the flow, and whatever happens, deal with it.
Regardless of how much we are missing out on, it is important that we are using healthy and safe coping mechanisms. Let's keep each other safe.
Thanks, Joe and Haley. One of my newest coping mechanisms has been to make this face. It really releases the everyday stress that COVID brings. Although we are physically in school, the majority of our learning is done on computers due to the COVID guidelines. This unorthodox approach to schooling has definitely been one to get used to. Please join Wyatt and Roman as they dive into first-hand experiences of both teachers and students about the online learning experience.
With the pandemic of COVID-19, teachers have found alternative ways to teach their students.
Some alternatives that have struck from COVID-19 would be online learning through Canvas and Zoom, whether it be doing your classwork in Canvas or online meetings in Zoom.
So Wyatt and I took it upon ourselves to go to students and to teachers to see how they feel about these changes.
It's definitely got its ups and downs. Online learning can be really easy, or it can also be really hard. It's a lot about time management and how you decide to do your class, because it's not on the same schedule as you'd be if you were in person.
So there are various components of online learning. So there is students who have opted to go completely online. They're using an outside program, so our teachers are not facilitating that. But then we also have students who are quarantined, or we have students who are COVID positive, and they are distance learning from the teachers that we have here. So I feel that obviously the best form of learning is for students to be completely in the classroom. But right now, due to the COVID world that we live in, the reality is that might not be able to happen. So the best substitute, I would say, is for us to have that online learning component.
Online learning really benefits me because I don't have to be on the same schedule as everybody else. So I also don't have to be at school for a whole day. I can just go home when I want to, and it makes it easier because you can finish your classes in 3 days and then have a bunch of free time and be able to do what you want.
I feel like there's definitely like pros and cons to online school and to in person, because in person you obviously have the support that you need in order to like get past certain problems right there with you, whereas like I have to I have to wait in order to get support from my instructors. But on the flip side, I can work ahead, I kind of work at my own pace. Yes, everything's graded according to days, but there's no necessarily like due dates.
So I think the best form of education is always learning within the classroom. And even if, like, I have students who are Zooming in, but they're still not getting the social learning factor. They're not getting to turn and talk to their neighbors. They're not able to like sit around the room and look at some of the components like the posters or whatever they have. So no matter what, classroom learning is going to be the most optimal learning situation.
Do I feel if I'm going to do better? I would say yes, because I mean, when I am doing my schoolwork, I feel like way more wanting and willing to do it due to the fact that, I mean, I'm not exhausted. I'm not staying up till, midnight, 1 a.m. doing schoolwork that I have to have in the next day or the next morning.
After interviewing students and teachers, we've come to the conclusion that there's multiple opinions on this subject. It's really up to personal preference as to which schooling one might prefer.
Thank you, Wyatt and Roman. It's really interesting to see how people have adapted to the new wave of online schooling. Something else that's majorly been affected by COVID is athletics. With more on that, we send it over to Aiden Brunin to cover today's sports piece.
Thank you, Willie. It has been a busy couple of months here at Cedar Springs High School, and we've been able to play the sports that we love. On Saturday, October 24th, the girls volleyball team travels to Walkersville High School, and the cross-country team travel to Forest Hill Central. Good luck to both the teams as they compete. Now, how about we send it over to Jeremy Campione and Aiden Hovanek as they talk about the fall sports and the fall sports recap.
Fall sports at Cedar Springs High School are beginning to wrap up, and unfortunately for the seniors, this will be their last fall sports season. Let's take a look into the fall sports here at Cedar Springs High School and what their seasons are looking like now that they're coming to an end, starting with football. Gus Kapolka's football team as of right now is 3-2 with the senior night game against Kenwa Hills this Friday. Coach Kapolka hosted a very young team this year with a total of only 5 starting seniors on either side of the ball, the rest being juniors or sophomores. Adding to this, Kapolka only returned 2 defensive starters from last season, along with only 4 offensive starters as well. Despite all of the setbacks with COVID-19 and such a young roster, Kapolka has high hopes for this year's team and expects to do well moving on. Boys soccer shares a very similar story as well, after graduating 11 seniors last season and only having 4 on the team this season. Unfortunately, the boys soccer season came to an end recently after their loss to Forest Hills Eastern in districts. Speaking with Coach Freeland and his team, although they did not have the season they were expecting, they still all admitted to having a great time and loving playing with each other. It seems as if all fall sports share a similar story this year, as Coach Hunting hosted a very young boys tennis team with only 2 seniors on the roster. Despite such a young roster, the team still had a successful season, which unfortunately just came to an end October 10th with their last match at East Grand Rapids High School against multiple opponents. Although facing some setbacks, the team still admits that they had a great time playing for Coach Hunting and are sad that the season has come to an end.
Following the trend, Coach Lowing's volleyball team had a very young roster after graduating 6 seniors last year, leaving them with 4 seniors this year. Despite having an unwanted record, the team had a bond like no other. Talking with seniors Cassidy Canfield and Elizabeth Fettig, the relationship they share with the underclassmen is among the best they've ever had. The volleyball season is unfortunately coming to an end, but the bond they created will never be broken.
Boys cross country, coached by Justin Jones, and girls cross country, coached by Melinda Stressman, had very successful seasons as both teams managed to place very high in many of their meets. The boys team's secret weapon this year, Corey Bowers, has a current personal record of 15 minutes 37 seconds and is ranked 7th in the state for Division I. Bowers says he's very happy to be a part of this year's team and is going to miss being able to run for Cedar Springs. The equestrian team, coached by Katie Van Dyke, had an outstanding season, taking first place in all 3 district meets that they participated in. This success allowed Coach Van Dyke to take her team to the state championships, where they showed out and earned the title of reserve champions, taking 2nd place at this meet. Coach Van Dyke was very proud of this year's team and could not have asked for any more. Last but surely not least, girls golf, coached by Tim Relish, also had a successful season, and as you can guess, played with a very young roster. 2 of the most noticeable golfers this season were junior Morgan Merlington, who had the overall best game of the season, finishing with a 43, and senior Jenna Powell, who had the best consistent average of the season, finishing with a 45. The team took 5th place overall at districts, and Coach Relish says he couldn't be more proud of his girls. As fall sports begin to wrap up, seniors prepare to say goodbye. And us here at CedarSpringsTV congratulate all teams and their players on their successful seasons.
Thank you, Jamie and Aiden, and good luck to all the teams that are still competing. Now, many of you know my good pal, Dylan Greenland, but for those that don't, Katie Draper had the honor of taking a deeper look into his life and into the life as a student athlete. Take it away, Katie.
Student athletes have always had a hard task as to balance school and sports, and they are never really given the recognition they deserve. We sat down with CSTV's own Dylan Greenland to see how he manages.
My schedule is, I get up around 6:30, take my brother to school, goes to Red Hawk, he's a 6th grader. This is actually his first year back at Cedar since 3rd grade, which is kind of cool. I get to drive him to school, and this is my last year, so we get to bond in the mornings now. And then, I hang out, get all my classes done, go to football practice. Practice is fun. I enjoy it. It gives me, I guess it makes I play sports because it makes the year go by faster, and I really enjoy that. So I manage my time with sports and school by I find that balance because I'm a student athlete. Student comes first, so I got to make sure all my homework's done, and then it's athletics, and then it's even friends. So if I'm not doing good in school, I can't play sports. If I'm not performing or doing good in school, then I can't do other things outside of school. So I guess it's a challenge, but it keeps me busy and I really enjoy it.
I'd say I know Dylan Greenland moderately well, but not a ton. We're kind of like work friends almost. I mean, outside of school, he's very entertaining and he's kind of like a loving guy. But yeah, he's just really interesting, and he's just got a lot of weird, quirky characteristics about him that just make him kind of enjoyable to be around.
I would describe Dylan as an athlete as a hard-working guy that when we started high school, he wanted to start a varsity football position, and he didn't get the opportunity last year as a junior, but he worked as hard as he could on the practice team, and he worked himself up, and now he's starting on varsity. So overall, knowing DG for a long time, I know he's the hardest worker, one of the hardest workers I know, and he'll do whatever it takes to get on the starting team. Thank you, Katie, and thank you, Dylan, for allowing us to have a closer look into the life as a student athlete. Well, that's all from me today. How about we send it back over to Willie Zane to end off.
Thank you, Aiden. Dylan Greenland sure has overcame many obstacles to get where he is today. We wish the best of luck to all the teams as they wrap up their fall seasons. And as we wrap up this video today, we want to talk about the fall. There's a few activities you can do this fall for some fun. We send it over to Kate and Max with more. And it's always a great day to be at Red Hawk.
As the seasons begin to shift and nature begins to change, a wide range of new activities are available to everyone. Now, being that we're changing to fall, some of these activities include apple orchards. At apple orchards, you're able to pick apples, pick pumpkins, meet some of the wildlife there at the farms, and possibly go on hay rides. When speaking of pumpkins, there's also activities like pumpkin carving with your friends and family. And let's not forget, when talking about pumpkins and apples, there's a wide range of new treats you can enjoy with those pumpkins and apples. These include pumpkin pie, apple pie, caramel apples, donuts, cider, and other delicious treats. Now, another thing available at these apple orchards, or just available in general, are corn mazes. corn mazes are a great place to go with friends and family to enjoy nature and also have a little fun. As we closely approach Halloween, let's not forget about some of the scarier activities you can be involved with, like haunted houses. Scary movies are also a fun little activity that you can sit down with your family or friends and watch. I know personally for me, I love to sit down and watch a scary movie here and there. One of the fun fall activities in our town of Cedar Springs was Harvest Day. We got to get a quick interview with the FFA teacher to learn more about it.
Actually, this is Harvest Day. Farm Day happens in the spring with preschoolers, but we got some equipment over here, and the kids do hay rides over from Beach Elementary, and then they go through a corn maze that the Ag and Natural Resources class make. So this is actually put on by Ag and Natural Resources, and it's sponsored by FFA. Oh! So the Ag class does all this, and then we have Michigan milk and Michigan apples are all donated for the day for the students. There we go. From local farms.
With Harvest Day, there's a large range of activities people all ages can enjoy in nature. We got to experience the FFA Maze, and we were actually able to complete it. Kids from Beach Elementary were allowed to go in and see if they could solve it. This year's maze was shaped like a tractor. Kids also got to see heavy farming equipment and go on hay rides through our school district. Kids were also able to interact with wildlife that FFA students brought. These animals included bunnies, goats, cows, horses. I personally got to spend time with the animals and pet them and thought it was a blast. Finally, we asked the FFA teacher what he thinks about doing this Harvest Day.
We just love it.
We hope that you've learned that you should go out and find these fall activities and enjoy them with friends and family, because they're not going to be around forever.